plenty of information for my primary care physician to make a call to me and say, you know what, Darren, you need an angiogram. You need to relax. You need to not take it. You need to take it very easy right now until we can get you into an angiogram. It's that important. I'm very concerned.
Welcome to Embracing Digital Transformation, where we investigate effective change leveraging people, process, and technology.
This is Darren Pulsford, Chief Solution Architect, author, and most importantly, your host. On today's episode, my open heart bypass and the system architecture that saved me. Hey, it's just me today, giving you an episode. It's been a little bit, and this is a special episode today because this is the first episode that I'm recording since my double bypass open heart surgery I had 3.5 weeks ago. And the reason I want to give a monologue today is because I want to tell my story, primarily from the lens of a solution architect, which is a strange lens to have when you're talking about a life-saving surgery. But bear with me today. You're going to find some really interesting things that I learned sitting in a hospital for 10 days, having surgery and recovery and everything that's been involved with that. So let's dive right in. First off, the perspective that I learned was unique. Because not very often as a solution architect do we get the opportunity to see systems from the side of the product. Now, this sounds really weird, but it's really fascinating because the end product of a hospital stay is a healthy, the goal is a healthy, happy patient at the end. And like any system that we have, there's end goals that we have that help us move along in our journey of building a system. We don't just build systems just to build systems. But in this case, instead of seeing it from the outside and projecting what the product needs, I was the product. So it was fascinating for me to sit and watch this system work around me. And it gave me a very unique perspective. So let's start with the story first off. The story starts actually about 3 months ago when I started having a little bit of chest pain. I was in Utah visiting my grandkids. And normally when I'm in Utah, it's at high altitude. It's at 5,000 feet, 6,000 feet. I normally have a hard time with catching my breath. It's normal for altitude, but this time was very unique because I was feeling chest pain that wasn't going away. It went away eventually after about an hour or so, and I said, yeah, that's a little strange. 2 weeks later, I'm playing pickleball, and I feel that same pain. Just discomfort, not real hard pain, but I called my doctor. Now, I have a primary care doctor, the best doctor in the whole world. I have to, he saved my life. I give him a call, and it's from Best Life Medical. Shout out to those guys, Best Life Medical in Roseville, California area, and wow, an incredible insight from my doctor, Dr. Campbell, and he orders some tests. He goes, let's find out what's going on, right? And he goes, it could be indigestion, could be something else, but let's play it safe. So he orders a couple tests. First off, a CT scan of my lungs to make sure I don't have anything going on with my lungs. I have lung cancer in my family for multiple generations. So we were checking that. And then also a CT scan of my heart. And he ordered two different types. One with contrast and one without contrast. Okay, pretty simple stuff. This is where I started looking at the systems right away. My primary care physician is not in one of the big hospital conglomerates. He's a functional medicine doctor, independent. I love him to death. And so he's outside of the system. the normal hospital systems that are out there. So this is where the first insight came in. When they placed an order for me to go get imaging, it was with one of the big hospital conglomerates, and it was at their imaging center. Perfectly fine. Here's the interesting thing. The interface between my primary care physician and the hospital system was a fax machine. Now, some of you may not know what a fax machine is, but this technology is very old, but very effective. I can send a document, I scan in the document, sends it over the telephone lines, a real telephone line, sends it to another machine that can interpret those signals. It's highly secure, and it will print out that document. So what's interesting is, because it wasn't fully electronic, someone has to sit there and now type that document into an order system. And that interchange leads to misinterpretation. And in this case, one of the CT scans was left off, the one with contrast, which would have shown that I had 100% blockage of my LAD, which is also known as the widowmaker. It had been blocked for years, it turns out, and it also would have shown another blockage in my first diagonal, which was at 85%. So instead, we got a calcium score on calcium in my heart, and it was in the 95th percentile. Plenty of information for my primary care physician to make a call to me and say, you know what, Darren, you need an angiogram. You need to relax. You need to not take it. You need to take it very easy right now until we can get you into an angiogram. It's that important. I'm very concerned. Well, he makes this phone call to me, another interface back to the product. Well, the first thing he said to me and my wife was, hey, first off, don't get in an argument with your wife. I was like, hey, that's nice, right? My wife has been mandated by my doctor not to argue with me. This could be good. The second was, don't get on an airplane and don't do anything that will stress you out. We've got to get you into an angiogram. This is serious, Darren. The problem is the product, me, was not at home. I was in Curacao, which is off the coast of Venezuela, on vacation. And it happened to be towards the end of the vacation. We only had 2 days left on vacation. So we mentioned this to our doctor. Well, we're actually on vacation, because he said, do not get on an airplane. Well, I'm in Curacao. Curacao is an island in the Caribbean. There's a medical school there, but it's a Caribbean island, right? It's not going to have state-of-the-art hospital facilities like I would back in Sacramento area where I live. And so he said, well, if you have chest pain, do not get on an airplane. Go to the hospital. They'll know what to do there. He reassured me it'll be fine. Well, luckily I didn't have any chest pain for the next couple days, except Saturday morning we decided to go snorkeling. Last day in Curacao, the snorkeling there was incredible. And I thought, hey, this is pretty relaxing. I'm just floating on the water. It wasn't that deep. It was only 3 or 4 feet deep. No big deal. It'll be fine. I started feeling a little tightness in my chest, but nothing earth-shattering. So we decided I'm getting on the airplane. I'm flying home. So now I got a product that's misbehaving. I'm not doing what the system wants me to do, which is, get to a hospital, do the next step, which is the angiogram. And this is the hospital systems in general and healthcare systems are extremely complex because you're dealing with human interaction. And there's a great corollary to the way that we work with other systems where humans are involved because there's a lot of uncertainty. Humans do weird things. Like, I didn't want to stay in a hospital in Curacao. I wanted to get home. right? Now, it's not an easy flight coming home from Curacao. I had to fly to Panama City, and then from Panama City to San Francisco, and then drive from San Francisco to Sacramento, a 2-hour drive. So we actually end up getting into San Francisco about midnight. I drive with my wife. I'm feeling fine. I just tired and a little bit of pain in my chest. No big deal that I thought. Because at that time, we did not know that my arteries were completely blocked. We just knew my calcium score was high. And it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because if that second CT scan of my heart with contrast would have been done, I'd still be in Curacao today. My wife and I would have an extended vacation of probably 2 months, maybe longer, because you can't fly after open heart surgery, if they could even do open heart surgery on that small island. I don't know, and I'm glad I didn't find out. So, blessing in disguise, that test failed in the translation from one system to another. So that integration of systems was a blessing for me. So I get back home, 3 a.m. in the morning. We go to sleep for a little bit. I go to church. In the middle of church, I get this strong feeling, go to the hospital. Don't mess with this. I go to the hospital around noon. And that's where now I'm in a system. I'm in the system that knows, and it's a closed system. I'm in the hospital system, right? Very interesting perspective from that point. But before then, and this is fascinating. Before I end up in the hospital, so there's several different hospitals around here I could go to. And one of my best friends, he's been on the show a couple times. Shout out to Jeremy. He's a lawyer at Sutter Health. I call him and say, Jeremy, this is what's going on. Where should I go? Now, he's going to suggest his hospital, which is great. It's a big conglomerate. That's where my imaging was done earlier. So I knew they would have all my information. So I wanted to go in that same hospital system. Here's the product making decisions. A smart one in this case, right? Go to a hospital that's already has my imaging on my CT scan and my lungs and things like that. And he said, there's several choices, but the best hospital in the area for what you're going to is in downtown Sacramento. So I listen, and I go to downtown Sacramento, not a place I would have thought to go. Turns out that it's about the same distance as a suburban hospital, but it also turns out that this hospital is the hospital that can do open heart surgery, which I had no idea I was going in for open heart surgery. I thought, let's do an angiogram, maybe put a couple stents in. My dad has stents. It's hereditary. We're going to figure this thing out. So, great example here. I've queried an expert. He knows the system. The product is being placed in the right place in the system. Much like a scheduler in a distributed system, I'm going to place the product where it best fits. What an incredible thing. Because what it did, if I went to a different hospital, I would have to be moved by ambulance or air flight to this hospital I ended up at, which would increase cost, increase risk, and time. So it turns out that understanding up front, another great system architecture, understanding up front where I need to arrive, because I couldn't move the surgeon and the operating of open heart surgery to this other hospital. They can do angiograms, angioplasties, but not open heart surgery. So moving me and getting me to the right place first was critical. Hey, if you want to hear more about this story with my heart attack, it wasn't a heart attack, with my open heart surgery, and hear it from my wife's perspective, check out Where's the Lemonade. She and I are going to record an episode that talks about what happened and the miracles that happened in this episode are pretty incredible. You gotta listen. So this is where I end up in the ER. I tell them, look, my doctor sent me here. He says, if I have any pain at all, I'm having a little bit of tightness. He goes, I need an angiogram. Here's the situation. Wham, the system kicked in. And this was actually really incredible to watch and to see. They treated me like a product. And it was actually pretty good. Normally you would, in ERs in the past, and there's been a lot of changes in ERs since COVID, they would put you in a bed. And then people would come around and visit you. So I'm stationary, right? And then they move from room to room. This was very different. Instead, me as the patient, the product, I moved from station to station. EKG first. EKG showed perfectly fine. Has been for years. Good to go. They're like, we don't think you're having a heart attack. Right? Well, I wasn't having a heart attack. Move to blood draw. Blood draw, they said, we're going to take your blood every hour for 3 hours, and then every 2 hours for 2 times, and then 3 hours, whatever the case may be, right? However long they need. And they told me up front what was going to happen. So I moved from station to station to station. And it was fascinating watching my medical record that was putting into the electronic health record was being filled out as I moved from station to station. Now, I could walk. I wasn't feeling lightheaded. I wasn't feeling anything, just a little nervous, a little tightness in the chest. But they were monitoring me as I moved from station to station. And the electronic record was being filled out. And the really cool thing about the technology today was I had the app for Sutter Health on my phone. So I could see everything that was being typed in almost immediately. It would pop up on my phone. Hey, you've got a new, appointment. This is when you need to get your blood drawn. This is when you're going to get a CT scan. This is, they hooked me up to monitors, started monitoring me right away. So I was informed. Another great system architecture learning was I'm informed. So I could see on my electronic health record what was going on with me. Well, what this did was it decreased my anxiety. I didn't feel like I was sitting around waiting unnecessarily. They moved me from station to station. And at one time, I didn't have any place to go. There was like a 2-hour wait for my next test. So they moved me out to the lobby, which was fine, right? And then as soon as I landed in the lobby, they took care of registration. They said, look, you're going to be admitted because of your CT scan. Your doctor said, hey, we got to do this. We're going to get you into an angiogram as soon as we possibly can, but we're admitting you. So again, information back to the product, back to the customer. So it was very unique to see how the systems were all working, how they used electronics, technology, process, and people, the culture part of it. Because the nurses, they knew where to go find me. They knew possibly where I was. They were also understanding that I would be nervous. The training that went in was fabulous. The people were great. And it made the whole experience, I hate to say it, but somewhat pleasant, right? Because I knew what was going on. I felt like they cared about me. And then they finally admitted me into the ER, into a room. They were monitoring. I had heart monitors on me from that point on for about 10 days. Constant monitoring. Still not knowing what was going on with me, but they knew something was up, even though all of my EKGs, all my blood work was showing perfectly fine. No heart attack, nothing going on. I could tell they were a little bit questioning, is this guy for real or not, right? Is he, But they're going to admit me anyway because my doctor was insistent on, hey, we need to get this angiogram done. So this is Sunday, late afternoon. I'm checked into the hospital now. There were a couple interesting things that I saw here. Once I was admitted, I had an admission nurse. She was reading through my electronic health record, which I had a copy of on my phone. And she was reading through this, and I noticed something. They said that they gave me some medicine that I did not get. And I said, well, I never got that medicine. She goes, oh, it says here that you were given that. And I said, no, I never really got that medicine. I don't think I need it. And she goes, yeah, you're not in pain. I said, no, I'm not in pain. All right, so easily taken off of. So there's another great thing on the people's side. The nurses were listening to the patient, listening to the product, to the point where this nurse even questioned a doctor that said, hey, you need to do this. And she goes, no, I'm here with the patient. You know, they were calling down the pharmacy. The system worked because a person listened. So that's good training. That's great training on the side of this nurse, right? So this is another interesting thing. I'm in the system now. I'm in the ER, right? Emergency room or emergency department system. Now they're going to move me up to the cardiac unit because now I'm on watch. I've got my monitors on. Everything's looking great. The transfer from one department to another it's a different system. ER is about triage. It's about all that. Cardiac is a different system. The transition, anytime you have transitions between one system and another system, there's always room for misinterpretation of data and miscommunications. This is common in almost any system that you're developing and an area that you have to watch out for. And most of the time, the misinterpretation has to do with taxonomy of and nomenclature and vocabulary of the different systems. In the ER, and luckily they're all medical, right? But in the ER, things are different than they are in the cardiac unit. The nurses have been trained differently. They have different ways of doing things. And this was highly obvious to me when they moved me up to the cardiac unit. The ER nurse came with me, great, interacted with the nurses in the cardiac unit saying, this is the situation. Verbally went through and read through the electronic health record with the cardiac nurse. Something the cardiac nurse could have done on her own. And they did it in front of me. This is another best practice. Why? Because as the ER nurse is explaining what she sees and what she saw by talking to me, the cardiac nurse is hearing that. I'm hearing it too, making any corrections, which I made one or two small corrections, which was profound because it was typed in wrong in the electronic health record. Because guess what? Human interaction and communication and capturing that, there's miscommunication all the time. So by communicating in front of me, they were giving me the opportunity to give feedback and validate what was being said. And the cardiac nurse could hear and see what was going on. Pretty incredible. That to me is a best practice. That's a process change on interaction between departments. Once I'm in the cardiac unit, it's really fascinating because I had stickers for EKGs all over my chest. And they just slapped down new stickers. And I said, well, why don't you use the stickers that are already there? And they go, we like to do things a little bit differently here in the cardiac unit, which I thought was fascinating, right? Because they are the experts in cardiac health, right? So now ER has to be kind of a jack of all trades. So they're looking for lots of different things. Now they're focusing me down on a certain thing. So fascinating again. even in the same hospital system, there are micro subsystems inside where things and data and patients are treated differently. As well they should, because now we've narrowed down the product into very specialized areas. All right, so very, very cool to see this happen. The electronic health record, though, was the same electronic health record, right? Consistency, that's that thread. But as you noticed, they did not rely just on the electronic health record. They still had the interchange between the nurses, and this I saw every time that the nurses changed shifts. Nurses changed shifts in the cardiac unit every 12 hours. Every 12 hours, the nurses transitioned in my room with the electronic health record open and talking to each other. This is what happened to Darren over the last 12 hours. Fascinating to me to see, because that gave me feedback. I could say, well, I really went to the bathroom 5 times instead of the 3 times that you captured because I snuck into the bathroom on my own, without asking, whatever the case may be. So what's fascinating now I'm waiting. I'm waiting for an angiogram to free up. I'm not emergency because I haven't had a heart attack. I'm not having heart pain. I'm on monitors. If anything happens, they'll be able to get to me. Angiogram takes until late Monday afternoon. So I've already spent 24 hours at the hospital just chilling, just waiting for this angiogram. I'm thinking, okay, it's Monday afternoon, 3 o'clock. I'm going in for the angiogram. They're sending me down to the angiogram. It's a floor below me. Again, transition. Again, people interaction, even though the electronic health record is showing everything. Fascinating. I thought angiogram, and they explained it to me. If we see any blockages, we'll put stents in, and you could go home tonight. You can go home tonight. You can get back to normal in a week. Not a problem. And they told me what it was going to be like. They put in my arm the angiogram up in an artery in my arm. Very cool. I was somewhat awake during it, so I could feel the line go up into my heart. I got to see my heart upon that. Very, very fascinating for me, and watching all the systems and the technology was super cool. But that's me, right? That's me. I'm like, and I was back in the angiogram for about 35, 40 minutes. They told my wife it'd be an hour and a half. She went to go get some lunch. She hadn't eaten all day. She got this feeling to come back a little bit early. So she comes back. Just as she's coming back, they're wheeling me back out, 35 minutes. And I could hear them saying, no intervention was made. And I thought, I said to my wife, it looks like I'm fine, but we've got more tests to go on because something's going on. We're going to go to a Canadian Thanksgiving that night at our friend's house. I thought, all right, we'll still make it. We'll be a little bit late, but we'll still make it. I had business trips planned. I had podcast recording that week that I was supposed to do. And then I got the news from the doctor, because I'm like going, all right, great. We'll probably go. The nurses knew what was going on, did not say a word because it's not their place. That was another really interesting thing in the system. They were very nice, but they knew what they could say and what they couldn't say. It was the job of the surgeon to make that determination on what was going to happen next. And he said to me, you need a surgical consult. And I knew. Sorry. But I knew at that time that my life was changed forever. Because he said, this is really serious. You've got 100% LAD and an 85% on D1. And I can't put a stent in. He goes, it's too far gone. And And the good news is though that my heart was healthy. Somehow, through a miracle, whatever, my heart was still getting blood. Not all the blood it needed. It was probably around 60%. But there was no damage to my heart. And they kept me on monitors. They put me on the list for open heart surgery. And they scheduled it for Friday. This is Monday. Scheduled it for Friday because I wasn't feeling any pain. They were monitoring me. They knew if I needed anything right away, they could get me into an OR. And they tried to move me up if anything canceled. If someone came in with a heart attack, I get bumped, of course, because I'm not critical. So fascinating from that perspective, how quickly the system switched into this patient needs an angiogram to this patient needs open heart surgery. And the process that they had for that context switch that happened was incredible. The surgical scheduler was right there in the moment. Talked to me, explained to me, helped calm me down. Because, man, that changes your life completely. Helped me explain what was going to happen. I asked the nurses, who's the best surgeon? I only want the best. They told me. I'm glad I got the surgeon I did. I made some phone calls to my friend, of course, who works in the system. He said, this is one of the best guys in the nation that's going to work on your heart. Because I had him look it up. I had him go through the whole thing. Again, I had direction. Just like a scheduler in a distributed system, I get direction, I get hints on how to get the best care for me. So the system worked. They had people there. That's a process thing. That's not a technology thing. That's a training thing. These people were highly trained on how to deal with people in very tense and emotional and anxiety-ridden situations. And just the calmness and says, hey, we do these surgeries all the time. You're going to be okay. It's, they explained in detail, which my head was moving around like crazy. They explained the same thing to me probably 10 times over the next week. So I had a unique experience of sitting and waiting in the hospital for a week, basically, 5 days for my surgery. And all monitored up. I was walking the halls with a portable heart monitor. The nurses and I became great friends. All my kids flew in, almost all of them. One was in Tokyo, one was with their baby. It was just mass chaos. I've got 10 kids. So the hospital was inundated with my kids coming and visiting, and they brought donuts and they brought food for all the nurses. Hey, there's a great best practice. Kiss up to the nurses when you're in the hospital. Don't be mean to them. They make your life so much easier when you do. But watching every 12 hours the shift, this is what's going on with Darren. This is what's going on. Was fascinating that it was like clockwork. It was built into their systems. I could make corrections if I needed to. Sometimes I did. And they were, oh, thank you. It was very fascinating to watch. I could also see on my electronic health record on my phone, I could see everything that was going on with me when I was scheduled for surgery, all those sorts of things. So I got 5 days in the hospital. I was producing podcasts. It was like, hey, I have a remote office and I have to walk around with a hospital gown on to monitor my heart. But hey, other than that, everything's going fine. After surgery on Friday, I had my open heart double bypass surgery. Don't remember much after that, but my wife tells me how well-oiled machine that everything was. And I noticed in that week and the following week in recovery that hospitals are very complex systems. Not just the nurses, but I had 3 doctors. I had a cardiologist, a surgeon, and a normal medical doctor that was looking at my overall health in the hospital. And I never saw the doctors interact with each other, which I wouldn't expect the surgeon. The surgeon needs to be saving people. But he did come and visit me, explain things to me really well. The electronic health record was that common thread throughout the whole thing. The other thing was there's lots of other systems that keep people in the hospital happy and healthy. It's small things. It's kind of weird, but like food services, like cleaning services, all these, and they all have their own role that they play, but they still have to interact with each other, even though they're independent. So food services coming in, they knew I had a certain type of diet that I needed to be on, right? And they would run independent of the nurses, right? But they also knew that they were interrupted. Like if the nurse was helping me with something that was, a bodily function or something like that, or maybe they were shaving me or whatever the case may be, where it was more a private thing, the food services knew not to come in. But they still had their delivery that they needed to make. They still had their timelines, but they were interrupt driven, which was really fascinating to watch all this interaction. Or the house cleaning people when they came in. I love them. They were awesome because they said, "Hey, Darren, we need to clean your room. Is it okay if we come right now? We need to get this done." It was just with the professionalism that they had. Even though they were on a time schedule and trying to get things done, they still listened to the patient and were cognizant of what was going on at the time. Instead of just saying, "Hey, we got to do this now, we're on a time crunch." So watching the interaction of all these different subsystems to help with a final product was fascinating. And with my solution architect hat on, I got to experience systems that really work from a different perspective than I normally do. Normally I'm on the engineering side or the process improvement side. This time I got to be the product. Fascinating insight that I gained. I wish I didn't go through it, but I did. And I'm getting back into health. Things are going well. The surgery went really well. And I'm back on my feet, not 100% yet, but I will be here for my podcast family. And I look forward to having another 4 or 5 years, or hopefully even longer, talking to you, my audience, and bringing new insight into a digital transformation by leveraging people, process, and technology.
Thank you for listening to Embracing Digital Transformation today. If you enjoyed our podcast, give it 5 stars on your favorite podcasting site or YouTube channel. You can find out more information about Embracing Digital Transformation at embracingdigital.org. Until next time, go out and embrace the digital revolution.